Horror in the Night is perhaps one of the most visually haunting and thematically rich episodes of Sled. It is not just a story of murder, but an exploration of darkness as a moral condition. The director builds a world where light and shadow are characters in themselves, where silence carries more weight than dialogue, and where every object seems to remember something terrible. The story unfolds with the discovery of a body in a derelict apartment on the outskirts of a Soviet city. From the very beginning, the atmosphere is suffocating. The hallway walls are covered with peeling paint, and the sound design amplifies every creak, every breath. The detective enters not as a savior, but as a reluctant witness to human failure. What immediately sets this episode apart is its refusal to provide comfort. There are no clear heroes, only shades of guilt. The investigation uncovers a tangle of relationships. A neighbor who envied, a co-worker who lied, a friend who turned away. Each carries a piece of the puzzle, but none of them are innocent. The moral geometry of the show is circular. Everyone's sin feeds into the other's tragedy. One could almost call it a cinematic confession. The cinematography deserves special mention. The lighting is cold, bluish, resembling the glow of a dying bulb. Faces are often half hidden, as if the characters themselves are afraid of being seen. The camera never hurries, and this slowness feels deliberate, echoing the investigative process but also the burden of conscience. One remarkable aspect of Sled is its historical accuracy. The furniture, the clothing, the dialect, all meticulously recreate the atmosphere of a time when appearances mattered more than truth. But within that realism lies symbolism. The recurring image of a mirror, cracked and dirty, appears several times. It becomes a silent motif for self-reflection and denial. When the murderer is finally revealed, he is shown sitting in front of that mirror, staring not at his reflection, but at what he wishes to forget. The show treats him not as an anomaly, but as a symptom. Evil here is banal, born not from ideology, but from small acts of cruelty, from resentment unspoken. Watching the episode, I found myself unable to categorize it as just a crime drama. It feels closer to moral literature, where every scene poses a question rather than an answer. The detective's narration, calm and precise, sounds almost theological. He speaks of justice, but the tone implies that justice itself might be another illusion. The viewer is left suspended between sympathy and revulsion, between understanding and fear. The music, sparse and ambient, reinforces that emotional ambiguity. What I admire most is how the director trusts silence. In one long scene, the camera lingers on an empty room where the crime occurred. Dust floats in a shaft of light and nothing moves. Yet it is in this stillness that the full weight of the act becomes real. It feels as though the apartment itself remembers. I recall feeling a strange empathy for both victim and killer, not because the show asks for forgiveness, but because it understands that horror is never one-sided. It grows like mold in the cracks of the human soul. The final sequence ties it all together. The detective walking out into the dawn, the city awakening, unaware of the night's secrets. The contrast between light and guilt is striking. The sun rises, but no one feels redeemed. Watching this, I realized that horror in the night is not about one murder, but about the quiet persistence of moral blindness. It invites us to confront the shadows within ourselves, to ask whether we too might look away when horror begins next door. For me, that is the essence of this masterpiece. It transforms the familiar into the terrifying, and in doing so, it makes us see the truth that most prefer to ignore.